Hi, I'm Danielle. Welcome to my perfume journal and the April installment of Perfume Collecting for Regular People. So in this series, I try to pull back the curtain a little bit on being a perfume enthusiast who absolutely loves all kinds of perfumes and has learned how to enjoy this hobby on a fairly strict budget. So every month I share what has come into my collection, what I've decluttered, what my monthly budget is, and then exactly how much money I've spent on my perfume hobby over the course of the month, right down to the penny. So this month was super great. I talked about it a little bit more in my April in review and most worn video. I will link that down below in case you're interested in checking that out. I sampled a ton of perfumes on vacation, and I had some really great fragrant experiences this month. And as far as my collection goes, April was equally awesome for that as well. I added a total of 7 bottles, 14 samples, and a bunch of other really cool things to my collection. Let me start by telling you that I purchased an e-magazine this month of the inaugural edition of The Scent Strip by Jen from Immortal Perfumes, and it is so wonderful. I highly, highly recommend this periodical. So Jen started the Scent Strip to provide some really high quality writing and content, as is her usual style. And she delivered on that promise and so much more. The articles in the newsletter are interesting. They're very informative. There's some really fun features like a Dear Abby kind of column, and there's a puzzle, and the graphics are just beautifully done. And she also offers a subscription to the paper version. I missed out on that. It sold out too quickly, but I thought the electronic version was just as enjoyable. It's just a really cool old school style magazine that's all about perfume. So if you are like me and you love to immerse yourself in all things perfume, this is something really great to check out. I will leave a link down below where you can get Jen's magazine called The Scent Strip. Okay, so let's start with the bottles that I added to my collection this month. The first purchase I made this month was this secondhand bottle of Peau de Soie by Philippe Starck. And I came upon this perfume kind of accidentally. It's a Dominique Ropion creation, and I thought it sounded kind of interesting. A perfume made by the great perfumer for the minimalist designer Philippe Starck. So I am not an expert on interior design or architecture. I am definitely not an expert on Philippe Starck, but I came to know who he is because one time, I can't remember when it was, but I of course went down one of my rabbit holes looking up those iconic Cartel Louis Ghost chairs. I'll put a picture in the video here. They are Louis XVI style chairs. They're French style chairs, but they're made from clear lucite, and Philippe Starck designed those chairs. So now everybody's mimicking them. You see them all the time, but he is the one who created them. So when I discovered this perfume and I read up on it, I sort of thought that they missed the mark on the copy for this perfume. They talked about this perfume being like a feminine, silky skin type scent, that it was inspired by the designer's love for his wife. And I was like, wow, this is like a modern, postmodern kind of designer. I thought they could come up with something maybe a little more avant-garde and interesting to say about this perfume other than it smells like a woman's skin. So instead of thinking about it as a skin scent, I chose to think about this perfume as a representation of one of Philippe Starck's lucite Cartel Louis Ghost chairs. And that analogy is just working better for me. So there are no notes listed for this perfume on the Starck website. The only notes that I could find were on a Maison Berger website for the lamp oil version of this fragrance. I'm going to just share what I think I get from this perfume and why it actually makes me think of the Cartel Louis Ghost chair. So since this is meant to be like a skin scent, there is some definite iris and woodiness that you get from this perfume. It reminds me a teeny tiny bit of Lumière Blanche by Olfactive Studio. That is a very translucent kind of woody perfume with a little bit of almond milk and cardamom. And both perfumes, Lumiere Blanche and Peau de Soie, have this like luminous silkiness to them. But where I think Lumiere Blanche is a little bit like nuttier and spicier, Peau de Soie comes off more floral and even a little bit aromatic. And so here is where the chair comes in. So when you think about a piece of French furniture, you might think of something kind of like sturdy, classic, timeless, something that could potentially last for like centuries. But when you make that same exact chair out of lucite, you take all of the heaviness, the weightiness out of the design, and you replace it with something light, something transparent. It adds like this element of surprise without actually changing the sturdiness or the utility of that object. And to me, that is Peau de Soie. There is definitely like a strength to this perfume. There's a sturdiness, if you will. There's something classically French about it in its design. Maybe it's the iris and the woods coming together. But then you add this surprise element of aromatics and florals, and that's like the lucite material that the Stark chairs are made out of. So I think that this perfume basically gives a classic structure, an avant-garde kind of like postmodern edge to it. And so I think that that makes it totally on brand for Stark. And it definitely has Dominique Ropion's hand all over it. I'm super glad I blind bought this perfume. It's a really interesting, affordable perfume that smells great. It also made me think, and I love when a perfume does that. I also did a swap this month with my friend Allie. Hi, Allie. She sent me this partial of La Chasse aux Papillons from L'Artisan Parfumeur in exchange for my bottle of Vetiver Pamplemousse by Jo Malone for Zara. And I was really interested in this partial of hers because number one, it has linden blossom, which I love. And number two, I thought the base notes in this were really interesting. They're listed as tuberose and ylang ylang in the base, which are notes that you might normally see in the mid. So I knew this was going to be a fully floral perfume, like through and through, literally a butterfly chase. So this is one of the older L'Artisan bottles. I have smelled this in the newer formulation, in the newer bottles, and the biggest complaint that I have seen about this perfume is that it doesn't last. But this version, this original, she lasts. And ultimately, this is a tuberose perfume. But this is not like all bubblegum and sweetness. This is more of the kind of tuberose you might find in like Dosan from Diptyque. It's clearly a tuberose perfume, but instead of being very, very pink, it's more green, if that makes sense. And I'm still really getting to know this perfume, and swapping with Allie was an absolute delight, and I hope we get to do it again. So then I went on vacation, and believe it or not, Vacation Danielle only purchased 2 perfumes. The first perfume I purchased was Belle de Grace from Fragonard. So this one was not a blind buy for me. I had sampled this perfume before. My friend Melanie, that I met on Instagram, sent me a sample in a swap, and that was before it was renamed Belle de Grace. It was called Mimosa originally. And this is a perfume, after I smelled Mimosa, I looked for it secondhand for maybe like a year. And then when I saw that it was rebranded as Belle de Grace, I was like, score, this is definitely going on the wish list. So instead of ordering it from Fragonard right away, I decided to wait for our vacation and then make this like my travel souvenir since I knew that they carried it at Marks & Spencer in London. So Belle de Grace is just a really lovely perfume. It's like a fluffy, pillowy mimosa. It's like a puffy yellow cloud. But there's also some really nice lilac, a soft heliotrope, and then some really nice green aspects coming through from the orange blossom and the violet leaf. And then there's a really nice white musk that anchors it and keeps it from being too fleeting. This perfume actually lasts like all day long. I just adore this perfume. It's super springy, it's very cheerful, and it's very easy to wear. And I just realized that I didn't even put this one on the tray, but this is Ghost Deep Night. And I wasn't really sure what else I wanted to get when I was on vacation other than Belle de Grace. That's the only perfume that I went on vacation knowing I was going to buy. And so I figured vacation will tell me what I need, and vacation did. So last year, my friend Ty, who is a total encyclopedia of perfume knowledge, especially when it comes to discontinued perfumes, he said to me one day, Danielle, have you ever smelled Ghost Deep Night? And I was like, no, I've actually never even heard of it. And he said, oh, like O in capital letters. You would love that perfume. You must smell it. And so I put in a search into Mercari, and this is a perfume that is definitely not easy to find in the US. And Ty's nose is a nose that I trust. So I just kept this one in like ye old memory bank. And sure enough, this is a perfume that I stumbled upon on sale in Boots on my vacation. And I was like, okay, this is the one. I have to get this. So Ghost Deep Night is really, really unique. I don't think I've ever smelled anything like this perfume, and that's what makes it so great. Essentially, this is basically a fruity floral, but it is not your average fruity floral because the florals in this perfume are moonflower and datura, and the fruits are peach and apricot. And I don't think I've ever come across a perfume with this combination of notes before. And that's what made it so interesting to me. So Datura and Moonflower, they are nightshades, and those are pretty dangerous plants. And this perfume does have a little bit of a dangerous vibe to it. The floral notes in this perfume are definitely fantasy notes. Like, I can't imagine that there's any way that this perfume would be made out of real Datura or Moonflower because they are just way too toxic. Like, for example, orchid is also generally a fantasy note in perfumery because orchids basically, like, they don't have a smell. But I'm going kind of off track here. So Datura is supposed to be like a very heady, very sweet, very hypnotic, somewhat indolic kind of floral. I would describe it, based on this perfume and other Datura perfumes I've smelled, as kind of like a cross between ylang ylang and jasmine, but like the deepest, most indolic versions of those flowers that you can possibly imagine. And if you really want to go down like a Danielle rabbit hole, Datura is super interesting because it is one of the examples of the Fibonacci sequence in nature. So, like when the petals are unfolding, when the flower is coming into bloom, they unfold in the Fibonacci pattern. So that means it's like adding up the two numbers before it. So like 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 3, 3 becomes 5, and so on and so on. So I just thought that that was super fascinating that the Datura flower blooms in the Fibonacci sequence. And I haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole to see what that looks like a slow motion video, for example, but you can be sure that I will be doing that at some point. Anyway, Moonflower. Moonflower is also a very sweet kind of indolic floral, but Moonflower is more vanillic than Datura. So obviously this is a very, very different kind of a perfume. It's sweet, it's heady, it's indolic. It's also a little bit spicy, it's fruity, it's powdery, it's woody. It is like nothing else in my collection. And I am super glad that I listened to my friend Ty, that I found this, and that I picked it up on vacation. So then when I met up with Cassandra, we had a little perfume exchange. I brought her some things that you can't find in the UK, and she surprised me with 3 bottles of perfume. First, she pulled this bottle of Stella Pop out of her bag, which is a perfume that I have been wanting for ages, but it is so hard to find here. This perfume is so much fun. It is a pink, playful doll head kind of a scent. And mostly what I get from this perfume is the violet, the tuberose, and the sandalwood. But there's also just a little bit of tomato leaf in this perfume. And to me, what that does is it just places like this little green leafy wreath right on top of the doll's head. It is everything that I hoped it would be and so much more. Cassandra also knew that I love Sarah Jessica Parker perfumes, and so she brought me a brand new bottle of Lovely Lights. This is one that I didn't have in my collection, and now I do. And so I've only worn this once so far, but I have found that this is a really lovely spin on Lovely with a really nice dose of honeysuckle. There's some sandalwood, and I get some gardenia from this. It has all of that like pretty clean floral feel that Lovely has, but I would say this one is like a little bit creamier and a little bit more powdery from what I can tell so far. And one of the things that I kind of like about the Sarah Jessica Parker flankers is that they give like a nod to the original fragrance, but they aren't just like, oh, here's the original with some added, fill in the blank note. They're all their own unique compositions, but you can still kind of see the through line between them the more and more you wear each of the flankers of those perfumes. And finally, Cassandra gave me a bottle of Vera Wang Embrace French Lavender and Tuberose. So this is the first Vera Wang perfume that I think I've ever tried, and it was such a great introduction to the brand. I am sure that you all watch Cassandra's channel already, but if you don't, she is one of the greats here on YouTube as far as I'm concerned. And one of her favorite notes in perfumes is lavender. Now, lavender is not a note that I gravitate towards, but of course, if anyone was going to change my mind about that, it is Cassandra. And she got me super excited about lavender with this perfume. So this is a really simple profile. It is French lavender with tuberose, vanilla, cocoa, and just a little bit of citrus in the top that brightens up the opening. And there's nothing sharp or piercing about this lavender. It's super soft and it's really beautiful with the tuberose and the cocoa. And I have mentioned before that I have been looking for a tuberose and cocoa scent to fall in love with for ages and ages. And little did I know that it would be one that also had lavender in it. I love this perfume. I really love perfumes that have that balance of like sweet creaminess and white florals or purple florals. So for me, this perfume ticks off all the boxes. It's like the best of all of those worlds. She really chose perfect perfumes to share with me, which just goes to show how totally thoughtful and wonderful Cassandra is. So thank you again, Cassandra, for these wonderful surprises and for spending time with me in London. I loved it and I can't wait to do it again. Okay, so I won't go into all of the perfume samples I added to my collection this month because there were a lot, but I will just highlight that I picked up another sample of Venice Rococo from Arquiste because I loved that sample so much that I got back in January. I blew through my 1 ml sample in no time. And then I also bought a little sample of Hummingbird by Zoologist, which I haven't worn yet, but I am excited to wear because I love Nightingale so much. I really like how Zoologist does birds. And I got these two samples at Bloom Perfumery in London. Now, full disclosure, I had been to Bloom before. I did not have the best experience in their old shop, but they've moved to a different shop. And this time, I have to say, I had a wonderful shopping experience in Bloom. I sniffed through a whole bunch of things. The sales associate was super nice, super helpful, and I ended up buying 2 samples there. So this is why I guess it's a lesson that we shouldn't write things off. Got to keep an open mind. Okay, so time to get down to brass tacks and dollar signs. What did I spend this month? So if you have been watching this series from the beginning, you know that my budget for my perfume hobby is $100 to $150 a month. This is my monthly fun money, and as always, I want to acknowledge what a significant privilege it is to have any fun money at all. It was not always this way for me or my family, and so it is not something that I ever take for granted. So this month, I added a lot of stuff to my collection. You can see most of that in my April in Review and Most Worn video, but I actually purchased 3 bottles of perfume, 2 samples, and the e-zine from Immortal Perfumes that I talked about earlier. So I started the month of April with $386.46 in my perfume piggy bank. I spent a total of $137.26 on actual perfumes, the 3 bottles and the 2 samples. And then I spent an additional $16.25 on the e-zine and postage for the swap and a little scented care package that went out to a friend. So in total, this month I spent $153.51 on my perfume hobby, which is $3.51 over my monthly budget. Now, I also decluttered a good amount, and from the declutter, $108.94 came in from things that I sold. So I am ending the month of April with $342.89 in my perfume piggy bank, which I am really, really happy about. So with all that said, I am actually contemplating an extra purchase for the month of May beyond my budget. I have had the perfume Eau Moheli on my wish list now for almost a year. I spritzed it on at the airport duty free as we were leaving from our vacation to head home, and I loved it just as much again as I did the first, 3-4 times I've sampled it. So in the upcoming month, I may just make a little splurge on an extra purchase since I have been well ahead of budget every month so far for 2025, and I would really, really like to have that perfume for the summertime. Will I finally buy it? We shall see. And so that concludes this month's installment of Perfume Collecting for Regular People. I am really, really thankful to all of you who watch my channel and chat about perfumes with me in the comments. Really, thank you so, so much. Starting this channel in the year 2025 is one of the best things I have ever done. I'm super happy to be connected to all of you. I hope you have a really great day. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.